Hey everyone, welcome to the Anderson Bros Outdoors. I'm Jake, and today we're going to do an update on this SCX6, so stay tuned. Hey everyone, welcome back. As I said, my name is Jake, and today we're doing an update on the SCX6 because I promised one, and some things haven't worked out like I wanted them to. So let's go ahead and dive into it. Well, first of all, we have this SCX6 honcho with the body just chilling on top, so we'll pull that off. We have the stock radio, and we have the stock motor. So the last update I did for this, we installed a Castle Creations Cobra 8 ESC. This is a 6S ESC, and it's supposed to be a 32-bit ESC. Meaning that it's going to be like your drone ESCs, and it's going to have a lot better low-end control, and it'll have full top-end, just like all the other ESCs out there. But it should have what's called sign mode. Sign mode is like the FOC technology in the Fusion 2-in-1. The stock motor and the ESC were not working very well, and I assume that this is because the stock motor is censored. So I got another motor for it. By the way, the settings in the ESC were set to sensorless mode, meaning that it didn't need to have the sensor connected. It does have a sensor wire on it, which is one of the downsides to the ESC, is that nothing is, like, everything is built into it. There is no, you can't like remove this wire if you don't need it. But you can see that this is the sensor wire for the Castle, and this is the sensor wire for the Spectrum. They don't really work. We pulled the Spectrum motor out, and we purchased a Hobbywing sensorless motor and put it in there. So you can see here that the Hobbywing motor is in there. So you do have to be very careful when selecting a motor for the SCX6 because the transmission mount, or the mount plate, is very particular on what motor will go in there. So this Hobbywing motor only has 4 screw holes, and I did have to modify the motor plate. And I'm going to take it out real quick and show you what I mean by modifying the motor plate. When you get the motor out, it's 3 screws and the motor plate comes off. Well, you can see that there are several holes. The motor plate is set up to accommodate whatever pinion you're running. So right now we're running a 14 tooth, so it's on the 14 tooth hole. And the issue is that this motor, the mount holes were not long enough. There's only 4 mount holes on it, so I had to Dremel out or in this way on either side the screw holes so the motor would actually fit in here. So that's problem 1. I was going to buy another motor, but I already spent $100 and some on this one, so I wanted to make it work. Once we got that situated, the motor does sit in there very nicely, and the mesh is just fine. There's no issues because it is exactly where it should be. We're on CastleLink version 1.0.2. We're about to update to 1.0.9, but before we do, I want to show you what it's doing because it is very problematic. We do have power. Let's go ahead and pull this out. If we go to give it gas, it cogs so bad. See that? It's really tough to probably see in video, but it wants the low speed control so bad, but it's like cogging extremely badly. And this is a 1650 kV motor, so it's not a, it's not a huge motor, but if we were to put it in the truck, you hear that? So it's so sporadic and jumpy, or cogging so bad, it makes it sound like the transmission is going out, but it's really not. It's just that jumpy. So I'm hoping that the update will fix that, and then we'll go in and validate the settings, ensure that we have the sensorless and everything hooked up or configured as it should be. By the way, you can use your original CastleLink on the Cobra 8 as well. You don't have to have the new connector. So I can't find my new connector. I don't know what I do with it. Now that we have the software downloaded and installed, the database is loading. It does take a long time to load the new CastleLink 2 software. I don't know why, but let's go ahead and check the settings, and everything looks good. So let's update. So there's one thing that was set probably wrong, and that is typically on these ESCs, you set the power to start power to high. I had it on high. It says the default is low, so we'll leave it on low. The ESC is updated, so let's go ahead and give it another shot. That is more promising. Still cogs a little bit. I think that was the issue, is the setting on the ESC was set to high instead of low, the initial start. I don't know if that is actually the problem. We'll test that here in a minute. This would probably be more ideal on testing something like the Three Brothers motor. I just haven't purchased one of those to test yet. If we lift it up, this thing is heavy. Still kind of cogs some, but it's not, not some, it still cogs a lot. See, it shouldn't be doing that. There's a couple of ways to remediate this. First, I thought it was just the stock motor. I don't think it's the stock motor. The stock motor is 1200 kV versus 1650. I think that it is actually probably the gearing. This should be in first gear. No, it's actually in second. It does actually work better in first gear, so it doesn't cog nearly as bad. So we might have figured out the problem. The settings on this Castle Cobra 8 claims to be an AM32 ESC. It very well is, right? Don't let that deceive you. It's not the same as this Rhino 40 amp or 80 amp or any of these AM32 ESCs that have extremely buttery smooth start and stops. Now, you can actually set the KV on this ESC for the motor. You cannot do that with the Castle. We did likely figure out the issue here with it, but I don't know that that's a good resolution, because I want the starting power to be high, just like on all the other ones, because if I'm in the middle of a steep climb, I don't want to have to give it more throttle or manipulate the throttle. I just want it to climb. You can still hear it cogging. It's not cogging nearly as bad as it was, but it still does cog some. While we're on the topic of updates, we do have the NSDRC 2500 servo. Along with that servo, we have the upgraded axle mount for the axle housing, so the panhard bar goes on this instead of the plastic one because that'll break off. Along with that, we also have new shock hoops for the panhard bar on the chassis, because again, those are plastic and they do break off. They move a lot. You can just see that when you see how this is the panhard mount here. You see how much it moves there. It is very beneficial to purchase these parts here. The link will be in the description below. I just haven't gotten them installed yet. Let's go run this real quick and see how we like it. And we are back. I think we fixed the problem. The Castle Cobra 8 is a good ESC. It is their first iteration of the AM32, so they are still refining it with software updates and things like that, which is completely understandable. Mosquitoes are trying to get me. Which is completely understandable for a first product, first iteration. I am very excited to see what they release in the future once they do have the new processor refined, software-wise anyway. However, we did fix the issue, so if you do buy a Cobra 8 and you put it in your SCX6, make sure that you get like a 900 kV motor, or you gear the pinion gear really low. So instead of running a 14 tooth, I'd probably run a 10, 11, or 12 tooth. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of cogging. You'll also want to make sure that the initial power is set to default, which is low. Otherwise, again, you'll have a lot of cogging. At this point, I'm not really impressed or unimpressed with the ESC. It is a first-gen product, like I said, so it is what it is. Would I buy it again? It really depends on how fast they can refine the software, but at this point, I would say no. I would leave the stock stuff in it, because you're looking at $200 for this ESC, you're looking at another $200 for a motor, and for the performance of the stock setup, there's really no reason to make that $400 purchase unless you have cash laying around. And if that's the case, feel free to click the join button on the channel. It's only 12 bucks a year. The SCX6 is fun. We do have some inserts for the SCX6 on the website. They're probably one of the biggest improvements you can make is the inserts for the tires, because the stock foams leave a lot to be desired. The other thing that you'll want to do is update the steering servo, whether you go with Reefs or NSDRC or whatever, pick your brand here. But you will also want to buy the panhard mounts for the axle and the chassis to ensure that when you do get your new servo, you're getting the most out of it. I think that is going to call it a video. I'm glad that we finally figured out what the deal is with this ESC and the cogging. I do have some more plans for this truck, so stay tuned. And huge shout out to all of the people coming up next. We appreciate your support. For those of you that made it this far in the video, thank you for making it this far. Feel free to give us a like, and we hope you have a great day.